Hi everyone, thank you for joining us with this video today. I am with Sharon Rosen. She's a new friend and a colleague that I have. And Sharon is a mindfulness and meditation teacher, as well as a spiritual healer. She does hands-on and distant healing with people. And I can tell already in our conversation that she's just really embodying a lot of what she teaches and practices with her clients, because Sharon has a wonderful, warm energy. So welcome, Sharon.
Hi, Jeanette. Thank you. That's beautiful.
So I really, I'll let you describe and talk about the work you do, and then I'd love for you to talk about, if you don't mind, how you got into doing this work.
Sure. It's always a great question. So I work mostly with women who are, as I like to say, they're very smart, they're successful on their own terms, very accomplished, and quite savvy spiritually, but still kind of find themselves in a lot of tight corners in their minds or in their lives. And what I love to do is just help them remember that they can turn around and step out of those corners in their minds and in their lives, that there are really so many other options. I think it's very easy to get into kind of either or thinking a lot of times. And there's a lot of gray area. And there's also a lot of power in being able to hold the paradox of this or that and see what else can emerge when you're able to let things just kind of be the opposites that they are. There's actually a lot more that's possible. Yeah.
So I'm curious, give me an example of, you say there oftentimes it sounds like high achieving women.
Yeah.
And successful. What are some challenges or why are women coming to you? What is it that they're seeking help with?
Yeah. It's very much about the bottom line to me feels like it's about learning to trust themselves, learning to trust what they know, learning to trust their own inner guidance, their own impulses, to be kinder to themselves, to not denigrate themselves so much. Oh yeah, I had this, I was speaking with a client this morning, and she said, well, I know this is going to sound crazy, but I had these really big revelations, and one of them was in the dollar store, and the other one was in Stewart's, and Stewart's is a kind of a 7-Eleven-ish kind of, convenience store. And I was like, that's beautiful. Inspiration can happen anywhere, and God is everywhere. So but most people would be like, what, are you crazy? Inspiration in the dollar store? It's like, no, that's perfect, because it's up to us to make the meaning out of the situations, and to understand and hold on to our aha moments and let them blossom, rather than kind of nipping them in the bud because, well, it was a dollar store, so that can't really be. We're supposed to have these great spiritual experiences out in the woods and, at the beach or in a house of worship. And, God's in the convenience store and the dollar store too.
I love that.
Yeah, inspiration is available everywhere.
And so you're talking about God, and I think we have some similarities in our work where we both seem very passionate about what I call spirit or the divine.
Right.
And
the mystery. I like to think of it as the mystery.
The mystery, yeah. So bring me back. What brought you to this passion for the mystery and for bringing that spiritual element into your work?
Wow. Well, like you, I always felt connected to God. And I grew up Jewish, and I would go to synagogue, and I loved the prayers, the sound of the Hebrew. And Hebrew, like Sanskrit, is an energy language. It's a seed language. Plus there are, if you believe in the Judeo-Christian beginning story, how everything came to be, God spoke the world into being. And that was with this language. So it's very powerful, just the sounds of it. And then there are the beautiful ancient melodies. So I always had this wonderful feeling. And then I would, kind of read the English translation, because I don't understand Hebrew. I'd read the English translation, and it was, I couldn't really relate to the God smote this one, and, with an outstretched arm and all this stuff. But I always had that feeling. And so it's interesting, many, many, many years later, when I studied Kabbalah, and I came to understand this notion of what's called the Ein Sof, which is the limitless, everything, endless light of being, kind of like the Tao. And that actually created the God of the Bible. I was like, oh, that's what I was relating to. That's what I was relating to in services. So I always had a connection, when I would go hiking or camping or whatever. And so that's been a thread all through my life. It wasn't really a part of my work in the beginning. I mean, I started out as a massage therapist. When I realized I didn't want to go into education, I was going to become a teacher. And then, I was very ideological. So I thought, oh, it'll be me and the kids, and we'll be on the floor playing and learning. And then I was like, no, it's lesson plans and administration and parents. And so I didn't go down that path. I also got a liberal arts degree. And had a couple of jobs, because I was like, well, if I'm not going to be a teacher, which I always thought I would do, I don't know what I'm going to do. So I just got jobs after college. And then I went to massage school just because I was interested in it. I always loved giving back rubs. And, when people say, oh, how did you get into this? I say, well, when my father would come home from work and be in a bad mood because he had a headache, and he'd say, oh, stand behind my chair and rub my neck and shoulders, and I could make him feel better. I was like, wow, this is kind of, even at that age, although I wasn't thinking this, it was like, this is what I was put on earth to do. Like, I can't fix his day, and I can't make his work any happier or his commute any easier, but I can do this thing and help him feel better. So I ended up going to massage school just to kind of learn more about it, not thinking of a career. In 1986, a lot of people didn't go to massage school. That was kind of unusual. And so, but I got work almost immediately. I mean, really, like, work just kind of got handed to me. So it was clearly meant to be.
Yeah.
And then I was always interested in people and in psychology. I could have gone in that direction. I would say anything with ology, sociology, psychology, anthropology. Always interested in human beings and feelings and relationships. So, then I studied Gestalt therapy for a while, also studied different forms of energy healing. And I was on my own, as so many of us who go into this field, I was on my own healing path, working on my own issues with depression and anxiety. And that was very much in the family dynamic. It's very much in the tribal dynamic as a Jew, always persecuted. It's like, all of our holidays are like, they tried to kill us, we won, let's eat. That's kind of how you can boil it down. It's like, oh yeah, they tried to kill us. We persevered. We're still here. But you carry that. So yeah, so I was just always learning more about myself and different ways to heal and different, there's so many amazing modalities out there. I could be in a training every weekend. But I learned years ago, it's like, if I went to a training, I was, if I brought one really good piece back into my practice, that was usually enough. So, yeah.
So how would you describe spiritual healing? We were talking earlier, that's what I wrote my master's paper on, was spiritual healing. What do you see as spiritual healing?
It's a great question. I think it is whatever helps us feel more aligned and congruent within ourselves and remember and recognize and connect to that through line of divinity that exists in all of us.
Mm.
And it can come from so many different directions. And it can come from, some people it just happens spontaneously. But I think because of the way we're wired, because our neurological system is such that, we're still in fight or flight, and that older part of our brain is always the first thing that responds, even when we're not really in danger. We do have to, I think, train ourselves. And I think also as human beings living spiritual lives, we are brought into this human existence, and it's sort of built in that we'll forget a lot. We'll forget what our real connection is. We'll forget that we're a drop in the ocean and we're connected to everything. And then it's a process of remembering and then forgetting and remembering and forgetting. And, so it's this dance that we do. And, I think we always move a little further along, but I don't personally know too many people that I would say are truly fully enlightened and don't have to continue working and growing. And, so I can't think of a better way to live my life and to help other people, yeah.
So what has, listening to you talk, and it sounds like you've been doing this a number of years, and it's evolved probably, and you've added on. What has it brought to you, not only doing this work, but you yourself having your own personal practice of it? What are the shifts and changes you've seen in yourself?
Oh. Yeah, I don't know where I'd be, because it's the thing that keeps me sane. It's the thing that helps me deal with my own ongoing propensity for, having a little, leaning into depression or anxiety. It's much less than it used to be, but I would say that can still be, a place that I can go. Much, much less now. But I think, how do I want to say this? I think as human beings, like, you have to learn how to live comfortably in your own skin. And for me, the hardest parts or the hardest times in my life was when I just didn't like being me, or I didn't want to be me, or I didn't think who I was worth whatever, fabulous friends that I had or anything like that. So to be able to be comfortable in my own skin, be comfortable with silence, and be able to be in relationship with other people with less self-consciousness, less self-effacement, always kind of, somebody says, oh, you look great. Oh, well, no, now today it's really, I still have a thing about, whether or not I'm having a good hair day, like when I'm on camera, it's like, well, what does that even mean? That's not even important, so there's still a little bit of a default sometimes. And so the practices just keep bringing me back to what's really true, and it's not about whatever. It's not about the hair, and it's not about, what somebody said and how I'm interpreting it. It has to do with me and my connection to the mystery, to the, to the source of whatever put us here. Because ultimately life is just such a mystery. Life itself, why are we here? What are we doing? Is there an afterlife? There are so many questions. And so I think to just be able to be present in the moment and appreciate what you have in the moment. It could be the simplest thing. There's a lot of richness and beauty and alignment in that, and healing, I think. Yeah.
It's just staying present in the moment.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very easy to spin off. I always feel like it's kind of like having like your mind is kind of like a little puppy, and the puppy runs off, and you bring it back, and the puppy runs off, and you bring it back, and you don't beat the puppy up. You just gently come back to yourself. So for me, it's that. It's not living your life over there. It's living your life right here. Yeah.
I love that. So, what excites you about the work that you do? What do you really love in the work that you do with people?
I love seeing somebody, or hearing, 'cause sometimes we're on the phone and it's more of a kind of an energetic, and you're hearing things in their voice, or hearing something in the silence, but that sense of somebody really being present in themselves. Like when I was doing massage, it was a very physical thing. People would come in, they'd be all harried and crazy and then they'd have their session. And sometimes I would be bringing in, energy techniques. Sometimes I would even be bringing in some of the spiritual healing and counseling techniques, depending on what they brought to the session that day and what felt like it would be most helpful. And they'd get up and it would be like they were back in themselves, and really, and their face would be softer and their breathing would be fuller. So I just, to me, that is so gratifying to be the catalyst for that, for somebody to come back and rest in themselves and not be so, caught up in the crazy whirs of their mind, and come back to what's really real.
And when people do that, when they come back to themselves and they're really real, what kind of changes do they see in their life?
Well, I mean, it depends on the person, but a lot of it is that the stuff that they're making such a big deal about, they realize isn't such a big deal, or something that they didn't really know what they were going to do. Suddenly they got a new insight, or a new doorway in their mind opened up, or they just stopped making such a big deal out of everything. Because it is easy to, get caught up in the mental machinations of things. And most of the time, some of the spiritual aphorisms that have been around forever are very true, like this too shall pass. Whatever state you're in now is not going to be like that forever. So how do you ride those waves, and how do you ride them with more grace and without, falling off your board and getting a, mouthful of water all the time? So that sort of being able to ride things and not taking everything so darn seriously. Sometimes even something that's really challenging. It doesn't have to be so heavy all the time. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lightness that comes when we can do that.
Yeah.
More joy comes in. Another thing I'm curious about, and I'm listening to you, and I remember I forgot to mention at the beginning, you said you're also a writer. So what kinds of things do you like to write about? What are you working on right now?
Well, I have one book that I published in 2012 called Crazy World, Peaceful Heart. And I'm currently working on another book that's more, actually it's about, and the title may be Relax and Trust Yourself. And it's all about how to connect to and work with the wisdom in your heart.
I love that.
Because the heart it's not just a kind of a nice spiritual thing. Your heart really has its own nervous system. It actually has its own brain, its own intelligence. And it's the first part of the body that develops in a fetus, which I just find fascinating. But we're so caught up with this brain, and it does take training and practice. I mean, that's a lot of, it sounds like also, what you may not think of it that way or frame it that way, but that's a lot of what your work is as well.
Yeah.
So how do we do that and really connect in to the wisdom of the heart and let that lead and stay connected to our source? Yeah. So there's that. But I write a lot about mindful living. I write a lot about letting yourself off the hook, not being so hard on yourself. Yeah, and I'm working on an inspirational card deck right now.
Oh,
I'm going to be
nice.
taking some of the phrases and concepts that I've worked with and written about over time, and bring those down into bite-sized chunks that I think is going to be a really fun thing for people to use.
Oh yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
I have some of those myself, where you can just look at a card and just that one little thought, let that sink in.
Yeah.
So do you have a blog that you write if people would like to read more of your writing?
I have a newsletter that I send out on a pretty much of a weekly basis. I've been very lazy about putting it on my website, on the actual blog site. But if people were to go to my website, 𝗺𝗗𝗄𝗏.com, they could sign up and also download a really wonderful deep relaxation meditation, Yoga Nidra meditation, which is nothing to do with yoga postures. It's a really amazing guided meditation. And then they would be able to receive some weekly inspiration as well. Yeah.
And I see you teach mindfulness and meditation classes online as well, it looks like.
I do. I have one starting on April 3rd, and it runs for 4 weeks. It's called The Mindful Way, and it's perfect for people who've never meditated, people who think that they could never meditate, people who've tried and feel like they failed, or even just to kind of give a little buoyancy and kind of.
These are the top results.
Oh my goodness. That's wild. I guess my phone wanted to talk to me.
Yeah.
Even people who have done meditation in the past and maybe have a meditation practice. But it's not easy going it alone. And even with all the apps out there, it's great to have the field of a group of people. And we do it on the Zoom platform, and it's really fabulous because you can be anywhere and you can be as comfortable as you want. And I bring a lot of poetry in for inspiration and guide a variety of different meditations in the mindfulness realm. Yeah. So it's a great thing.
Just sounds wonderful. Yes. You bring resources to it, the teaching, then people have the community. Yeah. So they're not trying to do this by themselves, which builds up that community energy to help support the meditation as a group.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Sharon, for allowing me to talk with you today. I've learned so much, and your work just sounds very rich and very, very healing for people. And they can find you at 𝗺𝗗𝗄𝗏.com.
Yes, yes.
If they want to learn more about you, your work, or sign up for one of your classes.
Yeah, and I'm always happy to hear from people and just, have a conversation about whatever's up for them. And if there's a way that I can support them or, a resource that I can guide them to, I love connecting with people.
Well, that's wonderful. So I'll put your information underneath the video when I go to publish it so people can find you.
Excellent.
And thanks again for this wonderful conversation. I really learned a lot more about you and your work, and it sounds really beautiful.
Yeah. Thank you so much. It was great to talk with you.
Oh, you too. Thanks, Sharon.
Bye-bye.